Parker here. Today, we will talk about one of two things Ben Franklin was sure about: taxes, namely the tax code. This will not be a rant about how taxes are too high or how billionaires get away with no taxes. No, this is about how the tax code quietly engineered a consumption based economy, distorted our incentives, and built a culture that rewards recklessness over responsibility. Let's break it down. Section 1: The income tax changed everything. The income tax is arguably one of the most destructive developments in the 20th century US economy. It shifted the nation from a production based economy to a consumption based economy. Why? Because taxing income discourages savings and rewards spending. If you produce and save, you get penalized. If you consume, primarily through a business, you get rewarded. We didn't just stop building, we started churning. And here's the kicker: a progressive income tax isn't just a bad idea, it's a Marxist idea. It's the second point in the 10-step plan for communism laid out in Section 2 of the Communist Manifesto. Still think this system was designed for freedom? Section 2: Consumption is the goal. The entire tax code is built to drive consumption. The IRS would rather see a corporation pay $0 in taxes and consume heavily than to save money and slow the machine. Tax avoidance isn't a bug, it's the system's feature. Tax evasion is illegal, but tax avoidance? Well, go buck wild. The tax code doesn't reward caution, it rewards endless consumption. Section 3: Business spending is greater than personal spending. Earlier, I said the tax code rewards consumption, but whose consumption? Business consumption is rewarded with deductions. Personal consumption is taxed and penalized. This creates a two-tiered system. Companies get to buy vehicles, software, and office upgrades, all of which are deductible. Families, they pay full price, along with full tax. If you spend money on your business, you're a job creator. Spend it on your family, you're just a taxpayer. Section 4: Saving is punished, waste is rewarded. Businesses don't get rewarded for saving, they get penalized. The general rule of thumb is spend it or lose it. Screw up a project, write off, save up cash for a rainy day, pay the tax. In short, the tax code subsidizes screw ups and penalizes prudence. Section 5: Bullshit jobs, bullshit pricing. Many jobs exist only because the tax code is so complex. Compliance departments, internal auditors, tax lawyers, consultants, and all non productive roles exist to navigate the tax code's complexity, all of which cost money. Now let's be clear, this isn't about attacking the honor of tax professionals. Most are honest, hardworking people doing their best within the system they've been given. But the reality is, the more complex the tax code becomes, the more valuable their services become. Whether intentional or not, they are incentivized to preserve and expand that complexity. We didn't design this tax system, we created a bureaucracy that feeds itself. Section 6: Megachurches are a tax product. Liberals often complain about megachurches and argue that all churches should be taxed. But here's the irony: churches already deal with the IRS. Even your local congregation has to navigate tax exempt status paperwork to stay legal. And the real kicker? Our tax code incentivizes the rise of megachurches. Picture this: you start a nonprofit and call yourself a pastor. You ensure the church doesn't show a profit at the end of the year. Boom, now you're tax exempt. And now you've got the budget of a Fortune 500 company, complete with private jets and veneers. On the other hand, local churches serving as their community's bedrock must comply with laws and regulations as if they were corporations. For those megachurches, those compliance costs, well, they're just a part of worship. And here's something no one wants to talk about. If we believe in the separation of church and state, why is the state regulating churches? This isn't about faith, it's about structure. And our structure rewards spectacle, not substance. Section 7: Market prices are warped. Business products like vehicles, tools, and software are priced with deductions in mind. Look for anything labeled as commercial. That's why a work truck is $80,000. The business writes it off. If a regular person buys it, too bad, they're not who it's priced for. inflated prices aren't a glitch, they're tax optimized. Section 8, Urban Sprawl and Real Estate Distortion. Want to know why we have endless suburbia? The tax code. Mortgage interest deductions, depreciation, and infrastructure subsidies incentivize urban sprawl, but that's only scratching the surface. Think of home builders for a second. With a spend it or lose it model, maintaining homes isn't profitable. Churning out new ones is. Section 9, the tax code as inflation control. There's an ugliness to the tax code that's rarely spoken about, but whether intentional or not, it is one of its primary purposes. The truth is that the income tax limits personal consumption. Inflation would explode if everyone had access to 100% of their income. The government taxes personal income heavily to keep inflation from boiling over, while letting business consumption run wild. You're not just being taxed to fund the government, you're being taxed to cool the economy you don't control. Section 10, Fair Share Theater. To the liberals listening, let's use common sense here. The DOJ would be filing charges every tax season if corporations were actively breaking tax law. As far as the Fed is concerned, they're not because they're following the law as written. Spend and consume. To the conservatives listening, you defend corporations and their tax rates in the name of capitalism, but most of them are run by people who hate your values. Both sides defend a machine that doesn't serve the people, just the system. And by the way, the tax code, thousands of pages. Add IRS regulations, tax court rulings, private letters, and guidance documents, you're pushing past 70,000 pages. Not because it needs to be that long, but because complexity protects the system. If the goal were simplicity or fairness, we wouldn't need a document bigger than the Bible, the Talmud, and the Encyclopedia Britannica combined. Section 11, the trap of the sweet spot. Tax benefits like the Earned Income Credit, child tax credits, and ACA subsidies often create a weird sweet spot where families are better off earning less. If you make a few dollars more, you might lose thousands in benefits. The system discourages advancement. It tells people to stay put and not to move forward. You shouldn't need a spreadsheet and a CPA to know if a promotion will hurt you. Section 12, Households and Hidden Penalties. The tax code pretends it rewards family formation. In theory, a married couple with kids should get a better deal, but in practice, the rising cost of living negates that advantage. And if both parents work, you might get less benefit than if one stayed home. We're taxing households based on a lifestyle that barely exists anymore. Section 13, Inflation isn't accounted for. I'm sure you've heard about capital gains tax. Guess what's special about it? The capital gains tax doesn't adjust for inflation. So, if you buy a house that doubles in price over 20 years, primarily due to inflation, you still pay full tax on the gain. With that being said, most people are exempt up to a certain amount, but capital gains tax still applies elsewhere, like stocks, bonds, and other financial instruments. In short, you're being taxed on imaginary wealth. Section 14. What's the fix? If the tax code shapes behavior, the only real fix is changing what we reward. Here's what I'd propose. Get rid of the income tax and replace it with a national sales tax or tariffs. You only get taxed when you participate in the system, meaning consumption. But here's the best part. We set a low tax rate on purpose. Starve the federal government. Make them justify every dollar. This isn't just tax reform, this is behavioral reform. It tells people that work matters, savings matter, and endless churn isn't patriotic, it's parasitic. Let Washington tighten its belt for once. Let the people breathe. Final thoughts. Taxation is not neutral. The tax code doesn't just raise revenue, it shapes behavior at every level. It tells families when to spend, it tells businesses when to waste, it shapes entire industries, creating armies of professionals who depend on the system staying broken. It decides what kind of economy we have and what kind of culture we reward. If we want to fix our country, we can't just tinker with rates. We have to change the incentives. This is AnvilHammerForge. Let's get to work.